Have a warm welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. Today, I'm a Starfleet captain, yes, and I introduce to you the new Star Trek Aldebaran Spirit. It's 38% ABV. It's unchill filtered. It's 49.90 euros in Central Europe, and probably 1 or 2 or 3 euros more wherever you live due to higher alcohol taxes and VAT. Yeah, this whiskey is produced by the V-Sinne distillery in southern Germany, in the southwestern part of Germany, and it's officially called Star Trek Aldebaran Spirit, and it's legally licensed. Yeah, and to tell a few things about this whiskey, we have to move back in the 1992 or up ahead in the 23rd century to the Star Trek episode. It's season 6, episode 4, and it's called Relics. And with this relics, this is a double meaning. Relics is one thing. They find a Dyson sphere in the universe, or in the Milky Way, and a Dyson sphere is called after named after a physician in the 20th century. I think Mr. Dyson died recently, and he suggested a structure around a star to catch all the energy from that star, so that you can't see that star from the outside because it's completely covered by a sphere, and inside the sphere, millions and millions of the area, or billions of the area of the Earth, are there to have the chances to be inhabited by people. So it's really a big thing. And this is one relic, and the other relic is a man named Scotty. Most of the people know who Scotty is, and this is the Beam Me Up Scotty. That's Scotty. It's Montgomery Scott, the chief engineer of the Enterprise, and this science fiction movie or series was introduced in the late 1960s, I think, or in the second half of the 1960s. And this was, the first sci-fi series in color I was allowed to see as a child. And I'm an engineer for aerospace technology, and I'm working now with my own business in selling whiskey. And as a aerospace engineer, I'm very, it's satisfying for me to read sci-fi books, to see sci-fi series and movies, and from my personal feeling, I feel myself more at home in the machine room of a starship than here on my scenery for taking whiskey videos. Yeah, and now we have those two relics. There's Scotty from the first season, and then we move ahead to the next generation with Captain Picard, who did this Picard maneuver always, and I just copied his fashion. Yeah, so this is the series where Captain Picard and his crew are on their way with the NCC 1701 -2 Delta. So it's the 4th or the 5th of A, B, C, and D. And they come to this Dyson sphere, and there they see this an old or a Starfleet starship having crashed on that Dyson sphere, and they beam down, beam me up, Scotty, beam me down, Scotty. This is the beaming where the whole body is completely disintegrated into information stored in an information buffer and then put together again at the destination where you beam to. And this was invented because they didn't have the small spaceships available, which is seen in the pods, which is seen in later videos. And so they had to invent this beaming. Yeah. And in this starship on that Dyson sphere, they find that the information buffer from the beamer is still filled. And then they extract a person from that buffer, and this is Scotty, Montgomery Scott, the chief engineer, who resided in that information buffer for 75 years. And now this relic comes out of this information buffer, and well, he is then on the Enterprise and moves around and feels himself outdated. Even personally, he was on a flight to his retirement planet, and now 75 years later, he is even more outdated and, well, moves around, isn't well complimented out of the machine room because he's disturbing things. And, well, he finds himself, after a walk through the Enterprise, at the bar. Always you move to the bar. And in the bar there is, by chance, there is Lieutenant Commander Data, this android, at the bar. Why is he sitting there? He's doing nothing, just waiting for him, of course. And then the scene starts, and Captain Scott, promoted over the years to captain, he sits at the bar, or takes a place at the bar, and then, how it's called, Gavin? Gyron? I don't remember his name. I've seen that yesterday. Comes and, may I help you? And he said, yes, please, Scotch, neat. Montgomery Scott is born in Scotland, the character, born in Scotland in 2222. And you hear this dialect, this Scottish accent very well into his sayings. But in German, in our translated version, you can't hear that he's a real Scotsman. But they tell quite often that he's from Scotland. And of course, he wants to have Scotch, neat. And the barkeeper takes out the Scotch, pours him a drink, a big drink. And then he starts to drink, and, oh, what the hell is this? There's a special saying from him, and the barkeeper says, well, that's Scotch. No idea what you mean, no? And he says, well, I've drunk Scotch 100 years before you were born. Yeah, so that's a problem. And then Lieutenant Commander Data comes to the scene, or to the conversation, and says, well, probably Captain Scott isn't aware that we today have synthahol. Synthahol? Yeah, this is artificial alcohol with all the taste, the smell, and the feeling of alcohol, but not the intoxicating, well, of the alcohol. And Scotty looks at him and says, well, you're not looking human. No, I'm an android. And then Scotty says, well, synthetic Scotch, synthetic humans. No, synthetic commanders. And then he says, well, there are some drinks over which are not synthetic, and probably one of those might suit you well. Then he moves around the bar, takes out a bottle of this greenish color, and he takes out the bottle, and from below takes it out. And Scotty asks, what is it? He looks at it. It is green. So this android could have figured out exactly what it is, but it was, well, the slapstick in this scene. Then he pours him a drink, well, a big one, from a water glass, and he pours it, and then he swallowed half a glass, and then he gets a refill from the android, and then drinks again, and then the scene is over. And over black, and then comes up, and he's going, well, a little bit the bottle is half empty through the ship, and he reaches the holodeck. And the holodeck is a room where the computer can simulate with holograms special sceneries. And he says, well, I want to see the bridge of the Enterprise. And it asks, which Enterprise? There are more Enterprises there. And he says, well, the original Enterprise. And after 2 seconds, he says, you're ready, you may enter. And he enters, and then he gets a flashback and is very sentimental and comes with a glass and this half-filled bottle into the bridge of the Enterprise. And then he gives a salute to all the dead men or comrades. And then he sits and his thoughts going back. And then, may I help you? Oh, and Captain Luc Picard enters the scene and asks him how he feels, what it is. And Scotty asks him, would you like to have a drink with me? And he says, of course. And he takes the glass, fills it up with his greenish whiskey, and give it to Picard. And says, well, you have to be careful. And he whoosh, complete full, straight down, a full shot, and very good. And Scott is shaking his head, and he says, do you know what it is? And he says, well, Aldebaran Spirit. And now we change over to the actual time. This is Star Trek Aldebaran Spirit. And Aldebaran is a star. It's the 14th brightest star at our sky, and it is comes from the Arabian. How it's called? I've written it down. It comes from. Here it is. It's Arabic, and it's at Dabaran, the following. So, and this is the following star, Alpha Tauri, from the Taurus constellation, and this is moving on the sky after the Pleiades. So it's the Aldebaran. And today we don't know if there's a civilization, if they produce whiskey, and this one is 95% malt whiskey. And the other 5% isn't specified. Of course, there's some color in it. And I don't take it half a glass full. No, of course not. And it's only 38% ABV. And yeah, well, probably it's whiskey. Probably it's not. So here we have definitely a malt whiskey, but it's young. It's really young. And if you look carefully, so there's no brownish, yellowish tone in it, so it hasn't matured in oak casks. It's a fresh whiskey or fresh spirit, and then they added some color, and there's a little bit of a artificial note on it, and a little bit of sharpness showing through. Yeah. Cheers. A little oily, and then intense, massive. Definitely a whiskey, but if you're looking for a old and mature whiskey, no, not at all. This is a fresh one, this is a sharp one, intense one. And I think this is just thought for, well, Star Trek fans and collectors. And there is the number 5344 on it. That's not the star date where this episode was happening. No, this is the number of bottles which were produced. And they got the full license from who? Paramount? CBS. I don't know who owns the licenses of that. So this is a whiskey for fans, for having it to your next movie, and then you remember Scotty. And the actor, how he was called, Dohan, he's, I think, already dead. He was well into his 80s, I think. And it's not too long ago that he passed away. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned. There's more to come.